Let me tell you a story. It all begins when I am born. I am small in my mother's rocking embrace, a smallness that makes one ponder growth as if it were an impossibility, a blip in a faraway distance. I'm small and I'm brown, but this is one shade that does not and will never resemble the splendor of the American tan, the exquisite physical and emotional chiaroscuro that is being white and becoming just dark enough to feel different. This is one name that I will never shed, a title that will dig its claws into my flesh. To be Indian will be a thing you see in my dark eyes and inky hair. My first. Soon my torso will change and I will have grazed the ceiling of my own girlhood. I will be faced with the disorienting truth of patterns and hierarchies and methods of social organization that make no moral sense, but are still employed because they can. Because they keep us searching. They keep us hungry for something we will never eat. I will get older, read the fine print of who I am. I will wake up, and it will hurt. When I was younger, I was proud of this oppression, the oppression that often accompanies being born brown. I recall it all pretty vividly. Second grade felt like adulthood. Cosmic weight of fractions and helping verbs on fragile shoulders. Now, on this one particular afternoon, a teacher of ours had been reading aloud several picture books on the civil rights movement in honor of MLK. Tales of Rosa Parks and her back of bus rejection, Harriet Tubman's body a beacon of light, pioneering a way through the Underground Railroad. Now, being the ripe age of 7 and reveling in my own little excursions, those that involve diligently tracing flowers into the corrugated carpet. The only thing I really internalized was brown skin. I remember thinking, I have that too. Suddenly associating this celebration with potential for my own. It had seemed so necessary back then to label who I was by proxy of people I imagined I could be. These fame-bound figures we were reverently observing, whose lives we were retelling. They were dark-skinned and universally loved. I was dark-skinned and could be universally loved. And what really is a label? Labels are everywhere. They swaddle beloved snacks residing in our pantries, overtake carefully typed TV news headlines, link themselves invisibly to the intricate, flesh-bound patchwork of human. I like to think that a label is simply a suggestion of a name, a dictation of identity in terms of possibility. But labels are so much more than that. They bear so much weight, too much weight. It's almost impossible to conceive of how much value we place on labels, the way we use them as this kind of definitive cultural capital, a determination of what we are statistically capable of what our existences will amount to. In elementary school had introduced me to this concept of being a minority, to overcoming the limitations of that label. And I had never before felt so in love with my own skin, so tightly bound to my own imagination of what it meant to be unlike the others. Here I was, sitting crisscross applesauce on the soft ground of a blue-walled classroom, seeing myself in a social sense for the first time, inputting my reality into a churning, lemniscate universe of hierarchies. And thus, the chaos began. Finding comfort in a label is a simple thing, a wanted. What is more complex is the forcible change in one's identity that is born in a system. This manifests itself in what is called a pigmentocracy. Defined by American literary scholar Trudeer Harris, a pigmentocracy is a social hierarchy in which lighter skin tones are valued more than darker skin tones. The fundamentals of a pigmentocracy illustrate that melanin will ultimately take precedence over human integrity. By way of this, melanin becomes more than a function of appearance. It becomes a grade on an empty scale. There's this one thing I recall asking my mother a while ago. It was about why she had never bothered to teach me her mother tongue, Bengali. She had said in turn that she loved English, that English literature was what she was raised on. She had always loathed the grueling language lessons of her childhood, playing the harmonium for guests, body swaying with the pull and push of folded bellows. The pull and push of folded bellows. Something in my chest fractured. It was unsettling. Her cavalier preference for a world that I knew reeked of colonialism and gentrification and other highfalutin terms all of us know, but none of us can really remember. It dawned on me. My family was a powdered product of a white language, a winter-latent beauty that wired itself so deeply in the roots of my lineage. Now, before your eyes, I can define and observe my mother's self-anglicization for what it was. To be anglicized is to be countless things, but I imagine anglicization in terms of what mutilates out of shape and contorts into superiority. While my mother may not have intended such, her response to what had felt like an innocent question at the time was propane fuel for my own flammable insecurity. She loved things about the Western world that I had just begun to see for what they really were: elitist regimes and aggressive falsities in blanketed disguise. The travesty of it all lies in that I am a product of two polar worlds, that my mother was primed to criticize her own origins by the essence of these whitewashed histories she had been asked all her life to accommodate. My mother is not a perpetrator, but a victim of a larger issue at hand, problem that bleeds into the way I, her daughter, must consider myself within a greater landscape. Thus begs the question, how does one title for self? How does one make the choice in origin and direction? My mother, namely, had built herself a reality that completely destroyed my understanding of what it was like to have been raised Indian, to have been dredged in experiences I would live my life in deprivation of. Since childhood, I had felt too American, ever presently on the precipice of my own South Asianness, experiences erased only in certain moments. Days in class when I'd say grocery like my father instead of grocery like everyone else. And yet I was not Western enough then for my parents. My predecessors had been too desecrated by the sun, darkened by its scalding fire, a grievous and haunting paradox. These words, brown, Indian, South Asian, they roll off the tongue in easy waves, but do those labels really mean anything substantive? Or is there something more to? So, here I stand now to tell you about how undeniably full I feel in this moment. How incredible, how bright, how thrilling it is to swallow the draught of my own history and regurgitate it to a world I have never known but can still manage to understand. I think of labels fairly often about how important we collectively have deemed them to be. We have determined that labels give us a value, but I think the truth lies in the inverse. We give labels value. We choose a rationale for their significance. We allow them to determine our destinies, to set parameters for what we can accomplish in our lives. And yet labels are so necessary. Is our reliance on labels progressive or backwards? Should labels be concern of comfort or truth? And can they be both? Over time, I have determined that labels can be a source of solace, that they can hurt and ruin, but can also serve to articulate what was once inconceivable. Feeling whole is just a manipulation of in favor of what feels right, like a sanctuary of name and definition. It's a function of conquest, a conquest of the self, a vanquishing of the weight of the world that we all self-impose on our own fertile shoulders. At last, to scale the slope of understanding who one is and where one's purpose lies in life is a difficult task. Still, the power of it all is present in the autonomy we give ourselves to define our own identities. We do this in recreating convention, in carving a mold for our shrunken bodies to fill. At last, I want you to think about why you choose to characterize things the way you do. Is it subconscious? Is it easy? Do your labels confine, constrict? The universe is so vast with so much of it unaccounted for. And I wonder where we lie in that cosmos, that starry sky. I leave you with a final question. Is there humanity in trying to rationalize what cannot be named? Or should constellations simply speak for themselves? Thank you.